Welcome back to another New York Giants video, and today Brian Daboll had his introductory press conference with the New York Giants. And as Giants fans, we've been used to these for a long time now. First, dating all the way back to Ben McAdoo, then Pat Shermer, and then Joe Judge, and then now Brian Daboll. Hopefully, this is the last one in a long time. Hopefully, Brian Daboll is the guy to take the Giants to the promised land and continuously win with the team. Obviously, we got to be patient with them. This is a complete rebuild now. They're going to do things the right way. So hopefully we see improvement throughout the year, this coming year. I don't expect us to make the playoffs, but right now, expectations, we shouldn't even have expectations right now. Let's just take this day by day, week by week, kind of how Brian Daboll said, kind of how Joe Shane's been implying too. So, it's going to be a process, and we're going to have to trust in that as fans. But with Brian Daboll, initial reactions were that he's a humble guy. He's a guy that's going to care about his players. He doesn't have a big ego. He's not a guy who we get a feeling that he's the know-it-all, because we got that with Joe Judge. We felt like he tried to act like he knew what he was doing, knew everything, the answers to everything. And that just wasn't the case. And honestly, no coach does. Bill Belichick doesn't have all the answers. Andy Reid doesn't have all the answers. No coach does. There's always room for improvement. And I think Brian Daboll, being a first-time head coach, realizes that he can't really set expectations yet, or that's just going to be that's only going to be him bringing upon his own downfall, kind of how Joe Judge did that. He was like, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. This is the kind of team we're going to build. This is the kind of team we're going to be. And that just didn't turn out right. And that also probably had to do in part of him getting fired. With Brian Daboll, it was all kind of general stuff, but there was also a lot of important information that we need to know as fans. And the direction of this team going forward. He brought up Daniel Jones. The questions were about Daniel Jones, Patrick Graham, how he's going to build this offense, defense coordinator, obviously, and play calling duties, which is a big thing right now, because him being an offensive coordinator, becoming a head coach, is he going to let that power go to the offensive coordinator, or is he going to call plays himself? And Joe Shane had something to say about that as well. So without further ado, let's get right into the quotes. We're going to start off with the play calling duties. Joe Shane said, ideally, the offensive coordinator will call plays, but nothing finalized on that front. Brian Daboll also had to say that they're working through offensive coordinators right now. They're interviewing guys. They brought in a lot of guys, too, that they're not going to mention publicly. I'm pretty sure Ken Dorsey's probably one of them, but you can't finalize anything until you interview those two minority coaches for the offensive coordinator and also the defensive coordinator. So if we do want to keep Graham, we're going to have to interview two other minority coaches outside of the building. So I think with this, it really depends on who we bring on. If it's Ken Dorsey, then I feel Brian Daboll is going to have more of a hand in the offense. Not saying if we bring in someone else that it's not going to happen that way, but those two have known each other for such a long time now, 4 years in Buffalo. So there's some familiarity with them. So if anything does, if they feel like, they have to talk about something, they're not, if Dorsey's doing something that Daboll doesn't like, then, it's going to be easy conversation, and easy to fix. If it was like Joe Judge and Jason Garrett, Joe Judge couldn't really say anything to Garrett, even though he was the head coach, because they didn't really know each other. They have completely different approaches in a way. So that really hurts you as a team, as an offense. But with Brian Daboll, if he brings in someone like Dorsey, we should be fine. If it's an outsider, I'm pretty sure we should be fine, because Daboll seems like a guy that anyone could get along with. So I think if it's Daboll, great. If it's not, if it's Dorsey who's calling the plays, or another offensive coordinator, I think we should be fine, because Daboll's obviously going to have a huge part in this offense. The next thing I wanted to bring up was about Daniel Jones. Obviously, this is going to be the hot topic going forward, just because he's a quarterback of the New York Football Giants, and his contract is coming up soon. And at the same time, we need to pick up his 50-year option or decline it. So this is kind of long. I'm going to read the entire thing. And it says, he's got the right mindset, Daboll said. He's got good size. There's a lot of things to like about Daniel, and we'll just take it one day at a time. We'll work with him. We'll help him get better. We'll help him better leader. We'll help him be everything. That's our job as a coaching staff and as an organization. It takes everybody. It's just not me. It's the rest of the coaches on our staff. It's the scouts. It's the support staff. It's the ownership group. It takes a lot to raise a quarterback. And if you will, and he's been around the block here these last 3 years with some different pieces. We're going to try to give him some stability and just take it from there. What I take from this is that Brian Daboll feels like he can work with Daniel Jones, but he realizes that he might not be the long-term answer, just because his 3 years are almost, his contract is almost up, but like obviously he's not going to come out and say that, but he obviously realizes that, and at the same time, they have to grow Daniel Jones as if he's kind of a rookie quarterback, because you don't know what the past regimes have taught him. There could be wrong things that they've taught him, like holding onto the ball, or like just looking at your first read, which has been a problem recently, especially with the offensive line. But if Daboll is able to correct some of these things and build off of that, we could see a completely different player in Daniel Jones, especially if you fix that offensive line, like Joe Sheens has been saying. Mentioning offensive line, they didn't ask Daboll about the offensive line, which is kind of crazy to think, which has been the only talking point recently. But nevertheless, Daniel Jones, I think they realized that he has the ability to grow. He has the ability to become a good player, a good quarterback, but at the same time, he hasn't been dealt the best of hands. So hopefully, if Daboll is able to become the coach for the next couple of years, and if Daniel Jones is the quarterback, we'll have a guy in Daboll and Daniel Jones where they've been together for a couple of years. But right now, it's not looking good, in my opinion. If you're Daniel Jones, you really have to take a leap this year. You really have to show that you're a franchise quarterback. If you're average, then I don't think so it's going to cut it, just because we're going to be, if they're average and if the team is not good around him, we're going to have a high draft pick. And if anything, you could always trade up, and no one has any ties to Daniel Jones, so the only guy, maybe it's Kevin Abram, who doesn't really have any power right now with the New York Giants. And John Mara has kind of promised, saying that he's going to let the head coach and the GM deal with all of that. So that's on DJ. There's obviously going to be a lot of things coming out about Daniel Jones the next couple of weeks as training camp and OTAs and all that kind of starts up. But the next thing is, Daboll said the schemes are going to be what players are best at. I think as a fan and if you're a player, this is really important. This is what you want in a head coach. You want the head coach to be able to adapt to what your strengths are and what you do good at. If you put Daniel Jones in, if you try to make him a pocket passer, that's not going to work all too well, just because he has the mobility, he has all of that. But if you open it up more RPOs, more design runs, maybe you let him change the plays, maybe if you let him roll out all that play action, something he excelled at with Pat Shurmur, the play action game. So there's a lot of things you can do here. If you're Daboll, you ask Daniel Jones what he's been good at, the last 3 years, what he's liked, what he's done well in Duke as well. You could always go back to then. That's what got him drafted in the first round. So why not go back to looking at what he did well, and just build on that and just build the offense around that, because they've came out and said that they're going to build the offense centered around Daniel Jones. The next quote, Daboll said, "Just be yourself. The players will see right through you if you're not." This is kind of funny and ironic because Joe Judge, he kind of wasn't this. We never know how he really was, but it kind of seemed like he was putting up a front because, all this hard-nosed talk and all this hard-nosed, everything, it just doesn't correlate kind of with his success in past years. He's come from the Belichick tree, so people are really going to come at you if you try to be that kind of guy, because that's what Belichick kind of is. Even though Belichick does things his own way, he has the success to back him up and back his ways up, even if he does try something new or push his players above the limit or close to the limit. But with Daboll, we kind of saw it in the press conference. He is himself. He's going to bond well with these players and everything, so I don't really see that as an issue with him. The fifth quote, the last one I have for you guys, is Daboll said the reports are accurate that Patrick Graham will remain as DC if he doesn't get a head coaching job the players respect him. We kind of knew that the players respect him. They have guys like Blake Martinez, James Bradbury, Leonard Williams, all these bigger names on the defensive side. And if those guys are with Patrick Graham, if they feel like he's their leader, then they're definitely, the rest of the defense will definitely back him up. But you know, hopefully he doesn't get a head coaching job somewhere else as a fan. But I do want him to succeed in the league. I do want him to grow and do want him to become a head coach. Well, which is something he will be in the coming future. So it's not like he's going to be with the New York Giants forever. It'd be great if he was, but it just doesn't seem like it because he's such a smart guy. His defense, what he's done with the defense the last 2 years he was here was just insane because we were one of the worst defenses in the league. It's kind of like if this offense goes from 31st to what it was last year in the last 2 years to top 10 or top 15. That's how much of a jump Patrick Graham did. And it's really hard on the defensive side when you don't have the talent. And he really didn't to start off his tenure with the Giants. He had no edge rushers. Leonard Williams wasn't with the Giants. No, that was before. So he did have Leonard Williams. But, you know, we don't have a number one edge rusher. We didn't have a second corner. We didn't have Xavier McKinney his first year. So there's a lot of pieces we didn't have and we still don't have, and he's still having success. And with the offense that he's been given, and the success he's been having, it's just insane. You know, you don't see that much. We don't see that much of an, you know, if your offense is that bad, you don't really see your defense performing to that type of level. And I think that's why this defense kind of took a step back this year, just because they expected the offense to be much better, and that's what they kind of centered their defense around, being more aggressive, sending more blitzers, corners would be blitzing, safeties, linebackers, all that kind of stuff. But when your offense is not good, you kind of have to play conservative on defense because you don't have expectations from your offense. You don't expect them to, you know, if you get in a hole, if you dig your team in a hole, you don't expect your offense to dig you out. So that's kind of why Patrick Graham and the defense took a little bit of a step back, but towards the end, they really did pick things up. They got things going. So if we do keep him, it would be a win, honestly. If we get someone like Martindale, it wouldn't be a win necessarily just because we don't know what it was, but what the defense can be. But he's a great coach. It can turn into a win. So it would just take more patience. But with Patrick Graham, you kind of just guarantee yourself that the defense is gonna at least pick up where it was last year or be around there, not just take a huge step backward, which I don't expect with Graham at all. So I think that those are all the quotes. So Daboll, I think he's gonna be himself. That's the main takeaway from this, for me at least. With the offense and the defense and the schemes and all that kind of stuff, that's going to come later, obviously, with OTAs, mini camps, and training camp. You know, that's where we really get to see how these guys are doing, what if their philosophy and if their schemes are really working or not. And then the preseason and the season, that's when everything really gets going. So with Brian Daboll, it seems like he's going to be himself. Main takeaway. He's not going to push these guys too hard where they're not able to operate. He's going to know their limits. He's going to try to form a bond with these guys. And if you're a head coach, a first-time head coach, that's really important. You need your players to buy into you. And his press conference wasn't all rah-rah and everything like Joe Judge's was. He was being really open. He was just saying it as it was. He was joking around, making jokes, and all that kind of stuff. So that's really important if you're a first-time head coach and everything. So I think that's going to do it for this video. So just remember to subscribe, hit the bell, and comment down below what you think about Brian Daboll and where this team is headed, and maybe drop me a like. So see you until next time.